You live in the safest, most comfortable moment in human history. No predators wait outside your door. Food arrives faster than hunger, warmth costs the flick of a switch, and nothing in your daily life is actually trying to kill you. So why does something still feel wrong? The real answer is far stranger than stress, or screens, or the pace of modern life. To find it, you have to leave your world entirely. You have to walk into a metal box built in Maryland in 1968. And you have to meet the man who accidentally predicted your future using nothing but mice. His name was John Calhoun. He was a researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health, and he was obsessed with a single question. What happens to a social animal when every need is met? Not some needs, every single one. So he built Paradise. He called it Universe 25. Picture a square enclosure, a little bigger than a small room. Inside it, Calhoun engineered heaven for mice. Unlimited food, unlimited clean water, perfect temperature held steady day and night, nesting material in endless supply, and hundreds of cozy apartments built into the walls, reached by little mesh tunnels. No cats, no hawks, no disease allowed in. No cold, no hunger, no threat of any kind. There was nothing left to fear and nothing left to want. Then he placed 4 healthy pairs of mice inside, 8 animals in a space designed to hold thousands, and he sat back to watch. At first, the story was exactly what you would expect. The mice explored, they claimed territory, they mated and they thrived. The population doubled every 55 days. This was the good time, the golden age, the part that looked like proof that abundance works. If you had walked in during those early months, you would have seen a booming, glossy, growing society. You would have called it a success. But Paradise has a hidden clock, and it had already started ticking. Calhoun watched the whole arc unfold in stages, and he mapped them carefully. First came the strive period, when the founders explored and fought and staked their claims. Then the exploit period, the great expansion, when the numbers surged and the universe filled. Then around day 315, the growth quietly slowed and something shifted. The society had stopped building and started rotting from the inside, even as it looked on the surface. More crowded and alive than ever, what was breaking was not the mice. It was the invisible architecture that held them together. Here is the first strange thing. The mice stopped spreading out. Even with hundreds of empty apartments available, they crowded into just a few. They gathered near the feeders, drawn to where the action was, packing themselves into dense clusters while whole sections of the universe sat abandoned. This is the exact effect Calhoun had seen years earlier in his rat studies, and he gave it a name that would follow him for the rest of his life. He called it the behavioral sink. The behavioral sink is what happens when too many social animals are pressed into too little social space. Not physical space, social space. The mice weren't running out of room, they were running out of roles, and that distinction is the whole secret of what came next. Think about what a young mouse needs in order to grow up. It needs a place in the order of things. A territory to defend, a rank to climb, a mate to win, a fight to either win or lose. In a normal environment, some mice succeed and some fail, but every mouse has a function. Every mouse has somewhere to go. In Universe 25, all those roles filled up almost immediately and they never opened again. Nobody died of hunger. Nobody left. The old generation simply never made room for the new one. So what happens to a young animal born into a world with no open roles? It becomes something Calhoun had never seen before. The population kept climbing, past 600 mice, and the society began to break in ways that looked eerily familiar. The dominant males, who normally guard territory, could no longer hold any territory at all because there was always another mouse pressing in. Exhausted and defeated, many of them simply stopped trying. Without strong males defending them, the mothers were left exposed. And here the damage went deep. The mothers turned aggressive, but not toward invaders, toward their own young. They attacked their pups, abandoned them mid-nursing, or scattered them across the enclosure and forgot them. Infant mortality in parts of the universe climbed toward 90%. Mothers who had been built by millions of years of evolution to protect their offspring were now the greatest threat to them. The most basic instinct in the mammalian world was quietly dissolving. But the strangest chapter was still coming, and it is the one that should make you sit up. A new kind of mouse began to appear. Calhoun called them the beautiful ones. These were mice, mostly males, that withdrew from society completely. They never fought. They never courted a mate. They never tried to claim territory or defend anything at all. Instead, they did only 3 things. They ate. They slept. And they groomed themselves endlessly until their coats were flawless and their bodies were unscarred. They were on the outside perfect, sleek, clean, physically healthy specimens. But inside, something essential was gone. They had no interest in other mice, no drive to reproduce. No capacity for conflict or connection or curiosity. They were alive and they were beautiful and they were completely empty. They had opted out of being mice. Does any part of that feel uncomfortably close to home? Calhoun thought so, and it terrified him, because these beautiful ones were the future of the colony. As the older, socially competent mice aged and died, the ones left to inherit paradise were the ones who had never learned how to be a mouse at all. They had grown up in a world so crowded with other mice that there was no space to practice courtship, no room to win a fight, no reason to build a nest. The behaviors that make a mouse are not automatic. They are learned. In youth, through interaction, and the interactions had become impossible. So the colony stopped reproducing, not because it couldn't biologically, but because it had forgotten how to want to. The last conception in Universe 25 happened on day 920. After that, nothing. No new births. A population that had once doubled every 8 weeks now simply aged and grew quiet and began to disappear. Calhoun called this final stage the second death. The first death is the death of the body. The second death, he said, is the death of the spirit, the death of the drive to engage with life at all, and it arrived long before the bodies did. By the time the last mouse died, the society had been effectively dead for years. Paradise had become a tomb in a box that never ran out of food. Now here is where you have to be careful, because it would be easy to hear this and panic. Mice are not people. And when Calhoun's work exploded into the culture of the 1970s, plenty of thinkers ran too far with it, treating Universe 25 as a literal prophecy of human collapse. The psychologist Jonathan Friedman pushed back hard. He ran studies on human crowding and found that density alone does not wreck us the way it wrecked the mice. People in dense cities do not automatically fall apart. So the simple version, more crowding equals doom, is wrong. But the deeper version is much harder to shake, and it points straight at your life. Look again at what actually killed Universe 25. It was not too little space. It was too little meaning. The mice broke not because they were starving, but because there was nothing left for them to do. Every need was met, so every purpose vanished. No struggle, no role, no reason to push against anything, and the animals slowly forgot how to be alive. The anthropologist Edward T. Hall, who studied how creatures use space, saw exactly this in Calhoun's work. The threat was never the crowd itself. The threat was a life stripped of the friction that gives it shape. Now think about the world you were born into. Comfort on demand, entertainment without end. A version of life where you can meet nearly every need without ever leaving your room, without ever risking rejection, without ever having to fight for a place. You can be fed, warmed, entertained, and soothed, all without another human being in the room. Does that sound like freedom, or does it sound a little like a very comfortable box? This is why the beautiful ones haunt people so much. Not because you are a mouse, but because you understand them. You know the pull of the safe retreat. The polished, curated, conflict-free existence where you groom your image, avoid the friction of real connection, and slowly stop reaching for anything difficult. It feels good in the moment. It feels like winning. And that is precisely what makes it dangerous. Because the thing that felt wrong at the start of this, that low hum of unease in the safest life humans have ever lived, has a name now. It is the sound of an animal built for struggle, living in a world that removed all of it. Your ancestors survived a world that constantly pushed back, cold that had to be outrun, hunger that had to be solved, rivals who had to be faced, and bonds that had to be earned the hard way. Every one of those pressures was a role to fill and a reason to grow. Take them all away, and you do not get a happier animal. You get a restless one, groomed and comfortable and quietly starving for something to matter. But you are not a mouse, and that is the one line Universe 25 could never write. The mice had no way to understand their own trap. You do. You can see the walls of the comfortable box precisely because you were just shown them. And seeing them is the thing no beautiful one ever managed to do. So the pull you feel toward the harder path, the conversation that scares you, the work that might fail, the connection that could be rejected, is not a malfunction. It is the oldest, healthiest part of you, refusing the second death. The friction you have been taught to avoid may be the exact thing keeping you fully alive. You live in the safest, most comfortable moment in human history, and now you know that comfort was never the goal, it was only ever the test.